Adriana, welcome. Welcome to the Democratizing SEO podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Thanks so much for hosting me.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for being on. I came across you after I had a topic in mind, the topic being getting along with non-SEOs. And I thought you'd be an interesting person to speak with. Of course, I've known about you for years. You're well known in the industry. But when I saw
Thank
you
you.
on LinkedIn, I thought, yes, you'll be perfect. So yes, it's an honor speaking with you today. Thank you so much for being on.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So I would like to begin, as I normally do, by asking you how you became an SEO professional. I know SEOs have a very interesting background and how they got into the industry. So, as I like to do with all my guests, I like to ask them how they ventured into the industry. So, with that said, how did you become an SEO professional?
Yes, so you're right that a lot of us have an interesting background because I think the majority of SEOs didn't have some big dream to do SEO. It just kind of fell into their lap for some reason or another, and I am definitely no exception there. So I am originally from the US, but I've been living in Germany for around 7 years.
Ah,
And my journey into SEO began in Germany after I had spent some time learning German and I needed a job. So one of the best ways to do that was to get into like content writing and content translations
mm,
because I knew both languages, and that was quite unique for working here and living here. And so that's basically how I got started. Was I was working as a freelancer because it's very difficult in Germany to just come and get a work visa, which is like a whole other topic up for another day. But that was kind of the easiest way to like get into the working world in Germany and then use my particular language skills and also my writing skills because my degree is in anthropology and English, and then I have a minor in writing. So
Oh,
three
okay.
things that involve a lot of writing. And so I just applied that then like to content writing and content marketing. And the first clients that I worked with, they basically gave me like a full kind of internship, let's say, into SEO over the first year, and I learned a lot over that time. And so
Hmm.
that kind of stuck with me, and it was never my dream actually to be in marketing at all, or SEO at all. But then I found that I really loved it, and so there's a big thanks to these first projects that gave me such a good first introduction and a good first impression that now it's become my career.
Awesome, awesome. So, do you have a favorite area of SEO? A pillar? Is it on page, off page, technical content?
For sure content, but I would say within that specifically multi-language. So
Mm,
that's what we specialize in at my agency, AS Marketing, is multi-language SEO. And that really comes from my background in this translation part of things.
right.
So I was working largely with companies who they have some sort of like international expansion goal. And in the beginning, it was mainly Germany to the US, but now that because of my team and the amount of languages that we support, it's basically one country to like 10 other countries or a
Mm,
specific region or promoting things within a specific language group, such as DACH, for example, the German speaking region within Europe. And so understanding how to do this from an SEO perspective, that's really my favorite thing because languages are super nuanced. Because I speak German, I learned Spanish in school and I studied abroad. And I'm currently trying to learn a little bit of Turkish because my husband's Turkish, his family's Turkish. So languages are things that surround me all the time, and I'm always interested in applying that to the marketing and to the SEO world specifically, and
mm,
just ensuring that everything really matches the local audience expectations because
right.
this big like mass globalization kind of marketing, it doesn't work anymore, and it's also just
Mm-mm.
a bad customer experience.
Yeah,
So lots
exactly.
of
Yeah.
people in the world speak more than one language, and it's really important to try to speak with those people in a way that they understand and they can relate to, And so that's basically my big interest within SEO, all of this like cultural and language stuff, which goes back to what I studied. So I didn't actually go that far away from what I studied in the end.
That's the beauty of SEO, isn't it? It's so wide and vast that it really can be catered to what the individual wants. So Mark Preston, for example, he is an SEO mindset coach, and that is a career, something that he's carved for himself, right? Um, 5 years ago, 10 years, maybe, 5 years ago, that wasn't even a thing, right? It wasn't even a job title. Whereas
Yeah.
he's saying that that's actually a big area, a big aspect of SEO, and he's created a lane for himself. That's one of the beautiful things about the industry. It caters to so many different mindsets, whether you're more content
Yes.
led, technical, off page PR led. It's very, very vast. Now, you've been doing SEO for a number of years now. I want to get your
Yes.
take on on the early days of SEO, and specifically the early days of SEO and copywriters. There was a time when, well, let me backtrack. Nowadays, there is this um, I think SEOs and developers are still figuring out how to work well together, should we say. I'm
Yeah.
trying to be politically correct here. I remember in the earlier days, it was a similar situation with SEOs and copywriters. In that a lot of copywriters really didn't want SEOs blatant bluntly telling them what to do, i.e., update copy with X and X text, and sometimes even writing it for them. Right? They felt SEOs were treading on their toes, so it was a friction. And having been in the industry for a long time, I'm sure you're aware of those early days. SEOs, copywriters really didn't get along as well as they do now. Describe what it was like from your point of view in those early days.
Yeah, so I think I can relate to this really well because I started more as a writer rather than a marketer in the content marketing and SEO world. And
Right.
so I actually was one of those people that was like, why are these SEO people telling me to do all of these strange things with my writing? I don't
Makes no
know.
sense,
All of the
some of the
fundamental stuff I had, yeah, makes no sense. All of the fundamental stuff I'd learned, like I had to basically throw that out the window and just completely relearn how to do writing in general, because what you learn like in university or school for writing is so different than what's actually applied in marketing and applied in SEO and applied in good copywriting. And so when you then add SEO to it, it's just like it sounds a bit strange and it can be really disjointed. So I think for me, what helped the most was instead of trying to push back and say like, no, this is bad writing, I always took the opportunity to learn more and to learn like how can SEO and copywriting be friends instead of combating each other, and how can we do things from a really natural language perspective, in order to make it not like just a bunch of keyword stuffing or like weird things going into content that just sounds super unnatural.
Yeah.
And so that was actually what I spent a lot of time experimenting with the projects I was working on and finding ways to do that, especially through keyword research. And so I think it's hard because if you're like really on the writing camp where you're so totally anti SEO and you don't want to work in that way, then it may not be the best type of writing for you to do. There is like conversion copywriting that has nothing to do with SEO. That might be more of the type of writing that you're interested in doing. But a lot of, let's say, like web page content that is for organic is SEO focused, or at least it should be to really get it promoted.
Yeah.
And then you kind of have to become friends with SEO to really, let's say, like provide skills to the business you're working with, whether you're working in-house or whether you're working freelance or consulting side. It's kind of something you just have to like accept nowadays. Or maybe go in a different route. There's a lot of different types of writing, so you just got to find what works for you, and learn something that you're interested in, and don't spend time doing stuff you don't like. Life's too short for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. What were some of the frustrations SEOs had with copy?
Yeah, I think, I think a lot of it has to do with how SEO developed, because SEO now, it has evolved to focus a lot more on topical authority, content quality, which is really good that it's been pushed that way, because in the beginning, it was really just focused on like, you need to have X percent of your words, including this keyword, and only state it this way, like this exact match phrase that maybe sounds completely unnatural to someone reading it. And so I think from a writing perspective, it would sound strange when the writer's probably following this instructions, but then you read it later and then it just sounds really strange. And so I think that kind of just created that sort of conflict between both of those sides, that it was hard to get on the right page, because it just hadn't evolved to really focus on quality like it has now. And I think there are still quality issues. There's still people trying to do weird stuff, especially now with AI. There's going to be like a whole other level of like weird stuff going on. But in the end, now SEO is a whole lot more focused on really providing high quality, easily readable, naturally understandable content. It's not about keyword stuffing or doing an exact percentage or keyword type or something like this. So I think that conflict has, hopefully, I would hope, I can only see it from my perspective, but hopefully that conflict has reduced with that.
I think every SEO has a bit of black hat approach in them. I'm curious, do you miss those good old days? Or do you prefer SEO now?
No, I definitely prefer SEO now, for sure, 100%, because it's just so much more quality focused, and it's a lot less about like trying to hack the system. And you just can't hack the system. Like search engines, they're too advanced nowadays, and they're gonna catch you. So it's just kind of a pointless effort. Just focus on quality. Understanding what your audience really wants, building topical authority, providing personalization and expertise, and that's really the best way to go. And that's certainly much more fun because you feel a lot better doing it. Like no one feels good like keyword stuffing. No one.
Yeah, those early days were just SEO. I remember SEOs trying to write copy. It was just so nonsensical. And I remember a number of copywriters being very frustrated that this was being passed along as good copy or considered copy. They almost didn't want it to be referred to as copy. They liked it as SEO copy rather than just copy. It was interesting times. In terms of the alignment, how would you say the two departments became aligned from your point of view?
Between like copywriting and SEO? Yeah. So I think lately a lot of it has differentiated based on ad copy and long form content. And so now there's more of a distinction between like a copywriter and a content writer. Not in every company, but from what I have seen working at an agency across lots of projects, there's more like a conversion or an ad copy type of writer. And they're the ones who can really like do this magic with, creative language. And while in Google Ads, you do have to kind of use specific keywords a little bit, but they don't need to be exact match. And it's a lot more, you're allowed a lot more flexibility than you might be with SEO. But in terms of especially like landing page copy, that really you should be doing, whatever you want with that to match what your customer wants. Whereas SEO is a lot more focused on long form, and it's not so, it can be conversion driven. Of course, you can have like SEO landing pages. We do work on that with B2B, for example, sometimes. But it's also like a different type of writing than you would write for solely like a Facebook ad campaign or a Google ad campaign.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the purpose is a little bit different, and also what the audience is expecting from that type of content is different. Mm-hmm. And so I think now writers in general, like marketing writers, have kind of gone into one of those camps, one or the other, or maybe there are some people who can do both and who enjoy both. That's great. But it's more split out. And so I would hope that that's helped kind of some of that initial conflict from SEO in the beginning, expecting writers to do weird stuff.
And if I were to ask you how copywriters view or regard SEOs these days, what would your response be? Do you think they like us better now, or do they still hate us?
Well, I mean, I can really only say from the writers that I've worked with, and the relationships that we have with our writers are pretty good. The same as if we're working with a writer from our client in-house. We haven't really had too much conflict on like, oh, this sounds strange for SEO, but as a copywriter, I want to do this. I haven't really come across those conflicts nowadays. But I think the way that my team and I approach SEO also helps with that, which I would hope is become more standard in the industry. And that's really focusing on finding keywords with search intent match. So you're not trying to just like stuff some strange keyword into something. You're really looking at like, how does this keyword perform within the search landscape of that particular business? What other content is coming up in the SERPs? What can we do in particular that's better? And then just really matching, that information that the searcher is looking for within that phrase, and then creating content for that. And that's how it comes off as quite natural the majority of the time when you look at it from that perspective.
Yeah, in the early days with SEOs working alongside copy, it was very SEO was a foreign, if you like, area for copywriters, and I think one of the things that really helped with that demystifying SEO was training, both from a copywriting point of view and an SEO point of view. I think that helps to bring us very close together. And these days, you really have issues with copy and SEO. It's mainly developers and SEOs, but that's a different different topic.
Yeah, that's a whole different topic, but that conflict is still very strong, if not has even gotten stronger over the last years.
Yeah, it's something that I think we SEOs need to take the lead on and work on to improve. And I think training is a key area for that. In terms of training itself, what role does it play in demystifying SEO?
Oh, yeah, that's a very big question. I think to understand and really appreciate the nuances of any subject, learning about it, taking the time to learn about it, and really do it yourself is the best way for anything to not seem scary anymore and not push against it anymore. And so SEO, I think, is the same. It's a very scary topic when you first start it. I think it's even scarier now than it was a few years ago, because there's just, there's so much information and it's constantly changing. Like me as an experienced SEO, it exhausts me how much it changes all the time. And I feel actually really I can empathize with the people who are just starting to learn it now, because you look at it and you're like, oh my gosh, I need to get like a doctorate in this like overnight to really to really get it. But I mean, I think the best way to just go about it is try to experiment on your own projects. And so if you have any opportunity to learn, that's how I basically went from just, doing writing, doing copywriting to now running an agency. Is I said yes to every opportunity I had to learn, and I took those opportunities for learning across a wide variety of things, a wide variety of like types of marketing, types of writing, and could experiment with them on real projects with real data. And then I think I kind of went through this point where something just clicked, and I kind of started to understand SEO's role within writing and within marketing, and it became a lot more clear and a lot less scary. And I think from a writing perspective, if you can have that mindset, then it will become a lot less scary, and you'll feel a lot less pressure, like, not someone's telling you do this, but you're also contributing to that from your own experience and your own expertise as well. So if you might struggle with that from an SEO perspective, then you might consider doing conversion copywriting instead, because there, of course, there's a lot of rules around that as well, but it's a different set of rules. So I think it's sort of like, if you're in writing for marketing nowadays, you kind of have to choose one or the other and accept the rules, unfortunately.
Now, in your case, you came from writing and went into SEO and was very interested in it, so delved in even more. For a writer who doesn't necessarily want to do SEO, but they want to increase their awareness of it, right? They want to improve their competence of it. Where would you suggest that balance is between learning SEO yet not going too deep into it where they become an SEO?
Yeah, that's a hard one. I think that's a very tough question. I mean, the best way to learn really anything in SEO is to directly go and practice it yourself. I think there are some great resources that you can learn from, like online courses and stuff like that, but SEO is a subject that it's very difficult to learn in theory. It's a very practice focused topic. So you can read tons of books, but I think for me at least, that was just more overwhelming than actually just looking at, okay, like here's an exact like example of how I can apply this, how I can do keyword research, how I can understand the audience, how content should be created to target keywords that matter for that audience, and then just learn from that actual experience. So, I mean, if you don't want to become a super expert SEO, then it may be that you are starting doing maybe some junior level tasks. I think at least like basic keyword research, understanding how to do that and the function of that is useful, so you can understand, okay, this is why maybe we've chosen these keywords and why I need to write about them, or this is the audience I have and this is why these search terms matter to that audience, and so now I know how to write for that audience using this sort of topic. So I think if that's like the bare minimum of understanding that, it will certainly make whoever you're delivering that to, whether you're agency side or freelance side or in-house, whoever you're delivering that content to, it will be approved of much more at a higher chance, I would say, and there will be less conflict in getting that out, because you're helping them meet that goal, and then you're also understanding the process so you can enjoy it a little bit more.
Yeah, I know of a handful of brands that have sort of like a training program in place where individuals, in this case copywriters, spend a certain amount of period with SEO. So they delve into the SEO department, and it can be for a specific project. So they spend time within the departments, SEO department, and just absorb what SEOs are doing, and that way they improve their knowledge without necessarily being a part of the SEO team or delving into areas that may not be necessary for their specific needs, because again, the industry is so vast. You can spend months learning it, and no one, by the way,
Yes.
no one knows everything there is to know about SEO within the industry, even people who've been
So
in it
true.
for years, right? Decade plus. From a playbook and workshop point of view, do you find that brands are investing more in the education of SEO to non-SEOs, i.e., upskilling non-SEOs so they improve their competence? The reason behind this question is, as I like to say quite often, it takes more than SEO to make SEO a success, right? And there are a lot of
Yes.
issues that are caused by non-SEOs inadvertently. This isn't to say they're to blame, but it's caused by people outside of the SEO departments, and SEOs find out a little too late, i.e., when the issue has already occurred. And a lot of the times recently I'm seeing that companies are now focused on, okay, how can we take a more preventative measure, especially companies that have been
Mm-hmm.
within digital marketing and have invested in the SEO for a long time now, going on several years, many years, in fact. They're looking at how they can take a more preventative measure, which again falls into education, workshops, playbooks. Are you seeing that companies are increasing their investment in this area for non-SEOs?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's a must because it takes really an entire department of people for SEO to function properly.
Hmm.
We run into this obstacle sometimes with clients where it's exactly like you said, like someone outside the department has influenced the success of SEO. It can be, for example, that the team doesn't have any dedicated developer, and then we're having to pull from a developer who's loaded with other projects, and then there's a lot of frustration, that we're adding even more work to them. And I think it could be the same for copywriters as well, that if they're suddenly in one department and then they're expected to go and do even more stuff for SEO as well, it's just overloading their
Yeah.
work and also
Hmm.
giving them something they're not used to doing, which I
Exactly.
think is yeah, it's a lose-lose situation.
Yeah.
So better would be to bring in someone who's dedicated as a writer on the team, and then definitely train them, spend a lot of time training them with a real project, with real data, give them, very detailed briefs and an understanding of what to do, have someone, whoever is more senior, giving them very detailed feedback so they can learn and giving them the chance to do that. And
Hmm.
that's really the best possible way is, don't try to just like add to the workload and expect that someone is going to understand SEO overnight. It won't happen. Yeah, like you
No.
said, it takes years, and even then, because of the constant changes, we're
Exactly.
always
Yeah.
learning all of the time. So I think it's very important both to train, but then also to have a dedicated team for SEO so you don't overload people who already have a lot to do in their current team.
Hmm.
And that's really the best recipe for success. So
Yeah.
a lot of businesses have started to understand the value of SEO and they started investing in SEO. So if you're investing in SEO, then also invest in your own team to really do it properly and teach them, and don't overwhelm other people by just throwing on more stuff to do and saying, hey, now do SEO too.
Exactly, because stuff like that, if I can add to what you just mentioned, stuff like that also create a lot of infighting within departments, and
Yes.
that is not good for SEO at all.
No.
uh, from a learning's point of view, what should we be doing to align with other departments? Let's say, let's position this as, okay, it's within our responsibility or we should be the ones leading the learnings and alignment with other departments. What should or can we be doing as SEOs to achieve this with departments, non-SEO departments?
I think having as much empathy as possible to understanding their role. I
Right.
think
Yeah.
SEOs sometimes can be, because it's hard to be successful at SEO, there's a lot of different puzzle pieces to get into place for it to work, and a lot of different people have to agree on the same thing to get everything in line and to be successful over a long-term amount of time. And so we have a lot of pressure to do that, and because of that, we can be a little bit egocentric, that we are only looking at like, here's what I need, and all of these people have to do what I want them to do
Yeah.
for me to have success. And I think it's also important that we also look at it from those other people's perspective and think about what do they need to be successful as well, and how can I communicate with them in a way that doesn't feel like I'm just giving them commands, or I'm just expecting something from them that they don't understand. Maybe it can be more of like a cross exchange, cross learning. Maybe you do a favor for them if they're going to do a favor for you, but just try to remember that SEO is not the only function in the company, and that there's a whole lot of people who also have their own goals, and it should be more of like a let's work together and both help each other achieve our own goals, and that will help a lot.
Yeah. And I think that is where the issue lies with SEOs and developers currently. We're very demanding, and we don't necessarily take the time to understand their point of view as well. And when you have, let's say, a developer, they have their own workload, right? And an SEO comes through and adds to their workload, and they don't like SEO. They don't know SEO. SEO to them is very, it's very different to what they're used to. Of course, they're not going to be cooperative. Of course, they're going to push back on SEO related work, because that's the one that's the most odd to them out of their workload. And it all comes down to the approach. As you mentioned, we sometimes can be very focused on what we want rather than considering, okay, what is a more collaborative way of achieving goals for the business. Client-side SEOs, for client-side SEOs, I should say, what do you think they can or should be doing to influence departments to implement recommendations? Let's say they receive a recommendation from an agency that they have supporting them. There is always this barrier that they have to overcome, which is the implementation of recommendations, right? What can be done to help alleviate or remove that barrier?
I mean, the biggest thing is not expecting it to be done in a way that it's another thing for someone who already has a full task load to do. If you just add more stuff to an already busy person, then it's not going to get done. That's regardless of whether that person is a writer, a marketing strategist, a developer, whatever the case may be. You need to have really a dedicated team or a dedicated time within your company for someone to say, I'm taking the time to do this. I have the time to do this. It's a priority for me. And now we're going to get it done and get it implemented. So this is actually, I submitted some commentary for the Women in Tech SEOs State of SEO survey this year. And this was actually my biggest recommendation for stopping implementation roadblocks. Is SEO a lot of the time is like an overflow kind of thing onto other people, and really instead just have a dedicated team that's there to have time for that sort of thing, and it will get implemented much faster, and people won't feel like they're just getting some command from someone they don't know and doing something they don't understand. So if businesses want to benefit from the value of SEO, they need to give people in their company the space to actually do it properly and not overwhelm them and burn them out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I would also say if we were to look at it, reverse it, the way SEOs are or sometimes treated by other departments, we're brought in pretty much when they're ready, when they are ready, right? So SEO isn't given the
Yeah.
time to be ready ourselves. We're brought in pretty much right before the end and expected to SEO before, let's say, a site launch, right? We do a similar thing.
Yeah.
We bring the different departments when we're ready, i.e., after we have the recommendations. It might be an idea to have them brought in earlier, i.e., from the briefing stage. This
Yeah.
way, it can be treated as a project. I find that when departments are brought in a lot earlier, projects work a hell of a lot more smoother than if they're brought in right at the
Yeah.
end just to implement recommendations. It's not taken kindly when people are told what to do without understanding their workflow, their departments, their processes. This whole team dynamics is very fascinating to me. I've worked client side and
Yes.
also agency side, and I can always see how things are internally when I have recommendations provided to SEOs who are client side, and they say they struggle to have the recommendations implemented. And it's just, well, the communication, I can see they have communication issues between this department's SEO department and a different department. And it's something that I'm very aware of, acutely interested in. And
Yeah.
I think it impacts SEO in a big way. I think this is a bigger issue from an optimization point of view than optimizing a website. So I like to say level one optimization is optimizing the
Yes.
website, right? Level two optimization is optimizing people, teams, departments,
Yeah.
and ensuring that they
True.
work a lot better. And when you achieve that level of optimization, level one is just a breeze. It's so much easier. So easier. From a business leadership point of view, I know a number of business leaders treat SEO as something that they're not necessarily interested in. They know it's something that they have to invest in. They invest in it and they pretty much just leave it to SEOs, and they don't necessarily understand the management of it and the intricacies of SEO.
Yeah.
And a part of that is because SEOs have given SEO a sort of like we have this connotation that it's a dark art sort of thing. And because of this
Yes.
phrase, people don't really want to be a part of it if they're not interested in it. How can SEOs client side demystify SEO for business leaders so they understand it without having to fear it or to shun away from it?
Yeah, I think that's like $1 million question nowadays, especially in the market conditions that we have now. It's a very big topic for a lot of people who work in SEO, and I think there's two sides. So really, both of them are driven by data. But in terms of like, if you want leadership to invest in SEO or give you more budget for SEO, it's important to try to build a business case around that and try to make it as data driven as possible, and also consider the type of data that you use. So SEOs, we have like our own data that we might look at, whereas leadership may not understand particularly that data.
Yeah.
And if we give them like a huge, I don't know, 30 slide presentation on specific SEO data, you're just going to overwhelm them.
Yeah.
And that actually hurts you. Even if you have really great data, as an
Exactly. Yeah.
SEO, like, look, my data's great, but it's really just the communication of that data and trying to simplify it as much as possible and tying it back to how does this benefit the business? So is it for brand awareness? Is it for conversions, such as leads or sales if you're in e-commerce? How can you fit SEO into the role of benefiting something from the business, and just stating that as simply as possible for leadership, and then also making it very concrete in terms of what you need to do that. So what do you need in terms of people, for sure? What do you need in terms of time? What do you need in terms of investment from them? Make it simple, and then you're much more likely to get a yes. And then I think once you have that initial data established, and let's say you do get a yes, and then you're implementing it in order to continue in order for leadership to continue investing, then keep sending them data. That's the big thing, is to keep providing data on how SEO is benefiting the business in some way that matters to that leadership. And that's the best way to keep it continuing on. I think a lot of the time, SEO can just be presented as way too overly complex. Or I noticed as well, because our team provides holistic marketing support, and so we do PPC projects as well. And PPC is inherently and fundamentally so data driven. It's been incredible for me actually to learn from some of our team members on how data driven advertising really is. And SEO didn't take that approach. It took a much more like, let's produce like 20 content pieces and then kind of stop there.
The
And
more creative
I understand
approach,
that SEO
right?
is very, exactly, it's creative. I totally understand SEO is very hard to forecast, very hard to predict. But if you want leadership to give you any leeway at all in doing it, you have to give them something to go from. I mean, now I know, as a person who spends a lot of time on our own budgets, our own accounting and whatnot for my agency, you need numbers. You need numbers to really say, like, okay, I'm comfortable investing in this. Even if I don't fully understand how it functions, I'm confident in the person who's presented this information to me. They seem to know what they're doing, so I'm going to invest in that. And that's really the best way, is just, use data as your best friend. Maybe you won't have as much as in advertising, but use it however you can, and it's much more likely to get a positive response from leadership.
Yeah. And we also, SEOs, have this rhetoric that it takes roughly 3 to 6 months to see results. What you've just mentioned right there sounds as though it's a whole load of work. So in terms of expectations, I'm trying to think of a way to ask this question. And without getting a response without getting the typical SEO response, it depends. But I can't think of a brilliant way right now. So I'll just ask it. How long does it take before, let's say, a head of digital can see results from SEO?
So if you have the conditions to align all of the people and get things live and implemented, SEO can work very fast. It can be within weeks. We have had, on our team, we've had projects where there have been very successful, let's say, SEO campaigns, or building out a topic cluster where we've had that done in weeks and it's already ranking. So the thing that is stopping SEO from being as fast as PPC claims to be is this red tape. It's this lack of, like, as you called it, it's the lack of people optimization, all of the roadblocks that stop it from getting live. So SEO does not take 3 to 6 months. What takes 3 to 6 months is for everyone to align and to get it live. That's it.
Couldn't have said it better myself. That's perfect. I love the way you articulated that. From an operational point of view, AI content is very much in the headline these days. Some brands consider AI content to be effective. Some are testing it out. What's your take on AI content being used for, let's say, localization?
Oh, in the context of localization, that's a great question, because it's something I have recently done some experimenting on to understand it. And to understand localization before AI, and I will say excluding things like Google Translate, before AI, localization was also not being done super well, and that's where we help our clients with, because they really struggle to do this. They're relying on basic translation processes, and they're not really looking at what are the market conditions, what do these customers actually want, what are the nuances in the local language. So when I was doing some experimentation with AI, I found it to be basically the same. So it lacked the same thing. There was no there was no added benefit than using a tool that already existed like Google Translate. That's not to say it will become more advanced, especially now that we have GTP4 is released this week. I haven't had a chance to test it yet because it just came out yesterday, I think, if I remember right. So I'm definitely going to do that. But still, I would be hesitant to say if you can purely use it for directly localizing something. I don't think that will work super well, because languages are just so nuanced. That if you want to go to another country and you want to ask someone like, where is the restroom, Google Translate might be great for that. But if you're trying to do, if you're trying to actually like expand your market presence in a new country, give the customers the experience they deserve, and put the time and effort into making it very quality focused and understand them. And that's something that AI is not to the point where it can do much yet.
No. And I think a number of brands that are testing and using AI generated content, or AI to generate content, might see an uplift in visibility, but that is only temporarily. We've seen very often that Google sometimes allows things to go through. Let's say if the algorithm is a gate, they allow things to go through just to get an understanding of those tactics so that they can combat it. And this is where the algorithm updates comes into place, right? With stuff like this, you might see a small temporary uplift, but all of that is to trigger a better response from the algorithm. So it's definitely something to be careful of. I am also very interested in how users will respond to seeing content that may be AI generated. Because I'm thinking, you mentioned expertise and experience specifically. There's a reason why Google added that to EAT, right?
Yes.
Expertise is not enough anymore. The experience is also what matters. So is it going to be a case where we're seeing a lot of informational based queries is something that Google considers or lets slide from an AI generated point of view? But that is pretty much it. The experience also needs to be considered within other areas of content. So is informational based content going to be what's seen as the area that Google can test from an AI content generated point of view? Or is it going to be a case of actually those type of queries aren't worth much anymore? There isn't much of a need to focus on it. So there's no point using humans to generate those contents. Let's use AI to generate. It's very the way I'm thinking of it now is very interesting. I'm keen to see how the industry evolves quickly to this new area that we're headed into. Search users and marketers. Again, I mentioned I'm interested in dynamics, right? Team dynamics and whatnot. And I see this as an extension of that. Because search users and marketers, that is all up in the air right now. And the next 1 to 3 years, I predict, will be very pivotal within the industry. That was a whole bunch of stuff. What's your thought around all of that?
Yeah, so I mean, I would quite agree with you that I think AI could cover like basic, I will say, top of funnel content. So basic informational queries could be directly covered by AI. However, the thing we have to remember is that AI has to pull data from somewhere. So there has to be some information or some source that starts with. And so that's why producing that content is still useful, because you still have to give it an answer to provide to a certain question.
Yeah.
However, where I think that AI will be a lot less useful is when you start digging into topic complexity and particularly applying this experience part. And that's where I think content is going to have to become even better now, by providing, real customer stories, subject matter expertise, real data, not just summarized data where you go and, you make a listicle of like 10 different groups of data and, finding the original source it's from 20 years ago and it doesn't work. Pull in your own data. And that's really where the sweet spot is going to be. So yes, maybe AI can help you produce basic information, but it can't help you with any of that. And that's where SEOs and marketers, we really have to bring in as much of that real experience and from the customers as we can and make that even better. And that is really going to inform too what Google shows as answer to those queries. So yeah, I agree that they're going to do a lot of testing. I think it will be very pivotal as well what happens over the next year and 2 years. I think a lot of things will change, but I think it will also weed out a lot of bad content, because we have to try more than ever before. We have to put in the effort more than ever before to really understand our audience and really understand what matters to them and what helps them. Be really authoritative in your data. And that is really what is going to get recognized. If you just copy paste what AI spits out, you may have a short uplift, like you said, but it's not actually going to bring financial results for the business at all. Yeah. And that doesn't help anyone.
Totally agree. Exciting times are ahead. Your agency. Yes. Your agency. Tell me about your agency.
Yeah, so we, as I mentioned, we specialize in multi-language marketing. We provide holistic marketing, but most of us are SEOs. So we are always making a joke because we have one really senior paid advertising person, and we always feel like we're overwhelming her with our SEO stuff, and she's kind of like on her own doing PPC. No, but it's great. We've had a great opportunity to learn from each other. So we also specialize particularly in B2B. We do e-commerce projects, but largely B2B and stuff that's really complex and unsexy, I would say. So we're not looking to sell like a social media scheduler or something like this. We're more selling like large scale manufacturing for the B2B industry, or maybe a complex e-commerce product that's $10,000 that another business would buy, or healthcare technology consulting, or pharmaceutical devices, things like this. So for me, it's actually very interesting because I love complex topics like this. A lot of our team does as well. So that, especially in terms of AI, because I've done quite a bit of experimenting AI's capability with topics like that. And then I feel relieved because I see how bad it is. So
yeah, it's like using Google Translate, right? A word or two is fine, but try to use it for a paragraph or even a sentence, and it's very nonsensical.
Yes, exactly.
We're still in the first quarter of the year. What are you looking forward to this year?
Oh, that's a good question. I am looking forward to really just understanding how this stuff with AI plays out, honestly, because we have tested AI tools already throughout last year, but nothing on the level of ChatGPT. And I didn't predict how popular it would become so fast. And I'm really curious to see how things actually play out over the next few years. I'm a little bit concerned with the misinformation. This is my biggest concern with AI. The spreading of misinformation, and also brands not checking the spread of their own misinformation. But I'm also excited to see how it will really weed out bad content, and how it will really push SEOs and marketers to really do content effectively, like we should have been doing for many years already. So a lot to unpack from that, I think. This year is very strange. It's a year of kind of like everything's changing so fast. I'm kind of more taking a look at like, okay, what are the changes, and how might that impact the market right now? It's more of a, I would say I'm taking more of a watching perspective rather than trying to fight against it or hugely implement it also. This has been a really commonly asked question I've gotten lately is, how are you implementing AI in your agency? Well, we don't even know its use cases yet or what it's capable of.
Exactly.
So, we don't want it to take over everything we do, and we need to see how it develops first.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a year where a lot of things are up in the air, and it's going to be very interesting to see where it all leads to. Adriana, thank you so much for your time. Where can people find you online?
LinkedIn or Twitter is the best place to find me. You can just type in my name and you'll probably find me like that. That's the easiest way.
And what is the name of your agency again?
AS Marketing.
AS Marketing. I'll have those links in the description for you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. It was really fun to be here. Great conversation.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I love speaking with fellow SEOs about SEO. So yes, it was a pleasure speaking with you. Have a brilliant day, and we'll catch up again another time.
Sounds good. You too. Thank you so much.
Cheers.